Oh.
Thanks, Jordan.
Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Live Before Lock. Yes, we have, well, it is a game. I can't really say much more about it. There's a game tonight. It is the Green Bay Packers, the New Orleans Saints. And now the Saints aren't just down Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, but also now Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Well, Alvin Kamara as well. Who would have thought? I actually thought he was going to play. We had him in the projections earlier. So that leaves them with a star-studded cast at wide receiver, the likes of Cedric Wilson, Kevin Austin, Dante Pettis, and Mason Tipton mixing his way back into the fold. What's up, Matt? How about this one? We haven't had one like this in a while.
I'm almost upset. Like, could we get some rookies or some young guys in here? We really got to kick the tires on Dante Pettis and these old vets that were never good in the NFL. Like, I don't even know what they're evaluating at this point. But yeah, we're going to trot out the veterans. Dante Pettis, Cedric Wilson. I mean, tight end is also a mess for them without Taysom Hill. At least the Packers have a lot of really fun plays on their side. And if anything else, the Saints allow us to play the studs we want to play anyway.
They really, I mean, Dante Pettis is $1,000.
Yes, he should be.
No doubt about it. But $1,000 with MVS in, I was still willing to consider a little bit of Dante Pettis.
Dante Pettis is a great salary opener. Even Kevin Austin at 3,200, who's your most expensive pass catcher at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. But man, Tipton now.
Well, Juwan Johnson would be.
What's that?
Juwan Johnson would be your most expensive pass catcher.
Juwan Johnson at 4,400. So even you can play him and feel pretty good about it at this point. We got the preemptive price up on Kendry Miller, but nothing else. But I guess no one was expecting MVS to miss, myself included.
I wasn't. Well, early in the week, it seemed like he might. You know, he had the back and then he had an illness, but then he practiced. And I was like, all right, well, he should. I think he got a full practice it. I thought he did. But that didn't matter.
Sure.
What's that?
I said, I'm not sure. But yeah, surprised and active.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, out of practice. Was this questionable? Whatever. It doesn't matter. He's out. So, yeah, this is who we've got. I'm actually looking forward to it. It's gross, but somebody's got to score.
Actually, that's why we have Showdown.
Yeah, exactly. Because if this slate, honestly, if this was a main slate game, you'd be playing one player from the entire game. Josh
Jacobs.
That's it. Maybe I'd take a few flyers on a Christian Watson because the Saints give up a ton of explosive plays and that's kind of his bread and butter. But Matt, that would be like a large field and I get 3% of him and he's 1% owned. Like it's Josh Jacobs. That would be the only guy you're playing on a main slate.
He would be a pretty good play as well. Have you seen his
captain
top
ownership?
No, his percentage of being the top scorer on the slate.
No, I saw his captain ownership earlier and it was 37%, which I can't remember the last time I've seen. So let's see, his top score, it's got to be above 50%.
It's at 46.
Okay, so I'm right, I'm there.
Yeah.
46%.
And Jordan Love comes in at 21. Everyone else is 6 or lower, but you get kind of a spraying of the Packers receivers, the way they play. Kendry's in that range. But yeah, man, we have the good old discussion, the Lamar Jackson discussion. Not do we play Josh Jacobs, but where do we play him?
I was wondering how long it would take you to bring up Lamar Jackson with the context we have surrounding Josh Jacobs. Because it always was. I swear, for a fully, because you and I have done this show. This is like our 4th season doing this show together now. There was one year where Lamar felt like every primetime game, and every game he was like 55% to be the top play, you know, the highest scoring player, or the optimal captain. And you don't see that much anymore. Even with Lamar a lot, you don't see it as much, given that his rushing upside is, well, his upside's still there, but the rushing with a Derrick Henry back there just hasn't been as much. It's pretty crazy to see that with Josh Jacobs. Happy to have you guys with us. As always, if you don't mind, take a single second this evening, atone for your sins. Merry Christmas, too. Merry Christmas to you guys who celebrate this fine holiday. This is my last show until Christmas, until after Christmas. You're filling in for me tomorrow. Thank you for the first look show.
Absolutely, man. It's me and Ben, right?
Yeah, it's
That's going to
awesome.
be weird. Me and Ben do the college show. We've never done an NFL one together.
It's so fun, though. It's a fun show. That is weird that you do that many shows. You've been doing shows together for 4 years, too, or more. But
Yeah.
that's a fun show just to dig into everything. I would recommend just not even tackling the Saturday games and just going Sunday at this point. But you guys do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you how to run the show. But yeah, happy to have you guys with us. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, goes a long way, helps us feed the algorithm. We appreciate you in advance. But how do you feel about Josh Jacobs with the ownership that he has at the captain spot and just overall ownership that he has? Because he's going to be like, what would you think his ownership is in large field? 80%?
I think so. And I think you could make a case that's under owned, to be honest with you. There's a chance he should be like 95% owned on today's slate, which he won't be. So anyone who doesn't have him might just be flat out making a mistake. Like, what are the outs to a bad game for him? In a blowout, he's going to be getting there along the way to that very blowout. You kind of need an injury on like the third play of the game.
I think one way to do it is you play him with Brooks in some lineups.
That's a good way to navigate ownership. And a lot of times we'll talk about like, oh, do you play him with Love? But the Saints are so cheap that I don't really know why you wouldn't play him with Love. You just soak up all the Packers points and it doesn't really matter what else you do because there's $1,000 Dante Pettis or Kevin Austin. So it's really easy to play them both together. Salary restrictions not really a thing. And I don't care about the negative correlation with the Packers team total being as high as it is.
Yes, we had a comment in there that from where was it? Eric Johnson. Hey, Eric. Josh Jacobs rushing prop is 89.5 yards. And then he said over question mark. Truthfully, it feels about where it should be. The thing where you're really, if you really want to look to see where it's coming from, look up Josh Jacobs touchdown prop today. That's where things start looking crazy, right? I mean, Josh Jacobs touchdown prop, last I looked, was like minus 300, Matt.
And I mean, I can see where you would listen to this and think taking his over rushing yards would make sense. But part of it is alternatives. The Packers use a 4 wide receiver rotation, which is pretty uncommon. All of that dings their projection as a collective. Like there's not one guy who has a Justin Jefferson ceiling or even like a Jacoby Myers ceiling. And then their run rate is so high that it kind of dings Jordan Love. He just isn't going to be projecting for that many raw pass attempts in this kind of game, nor is he really ever to begin with, just because the Packers have a very high run rate over expectation.
Guess what his
Oh my.
guess what his prop to score 2 touchdowns is?
Minus 130.
No, that'd be crazy.
I thought it was going to be crazy. What is it? Plus 140?
Yeah, plus 130, which is
Okay.
still crazy. Like that, I mean, that's still insane.
It is insane.
What do you like? I bet to score 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he's plus 650. That is preposterous.
One angle I think you could look at with the Packers backs, and to your point on playing him with Wilson, I don't know if it would require blowout territory to start mixing in guys like Wilson a little bit more. The NFL is crazy and there's a lot of parity in this league and anything can happen. But Jacobs has had a lot of tread this year. If you were ever going to pick a game to involve some of these backs, these depth backs, even from the start, I think this would be that kind of game. We're pushing like 14.5 points on the spread here. Like 14s are juiced everywhere.
I know. I nabbed it at 13.5 earlier in the week, but only because I knew this would move, especially a primetime spot. Like, hey, if you want it, take it now. Yeah, 14s with some juice to the over. Pinnacle's at 14.5, but actually it's really a 14 given the number there, the odds. But look, to your point, it doesn't really matter. When you look at a game that is, that has a 2 touchdown spread in Lambeau, Spencer Rattler with actually no one to throw to. He doesn't even have Alvin Kamara. Things could get out of hand quick, or they don't because, parity. But they could. And if they do, it wouldn't shock me to see them go to like a Chris Brooks early, but also see Josh Jacobs get his, Matt. And that's kind of the way I see it. Now, Emmanuel Wilson had 3 attempts last game, but 2 of them, they were up 30-13 over Seattle. 2 of them were the final drive of the game. It was like a few plays on the drive just to run the clock out, right? So 2 of his, he only played 6 total snaps. Brooks actually played more snaps than Wilson did. I think you just have to assume that if you wanted to play one of these guys, Brooks is he played almost twice. He played almost 3 times as many snaps as Wilson last week. Only had 1 carry, but played 25% of snaps. What do you make of that?
I think it's pretty sticky. I would mix them both in, but I would have it tilted slightly towards Brooks for the opportunity stuff you mentioned, but he's also $400 cheaper. Not that there's many lineups where you're really going to be upgrading based on the 400 you save, but there might be some situations. There's guys that you're probably sprinkling because again, they're for the most part unnecessary. If you're playing like small field or cash games or something like that, single entry stuff, you're playing one of the Saints receivers, their opportunity is just going to be a lot better. But for large field stuff, I think you'll run into some unique lineups if you do play these Packers backs together. Prefer Brooks, albeit slightly, but I don't hate the construction for the larger stuff.
Me neither. I would lean Brooks here, but I'm with you in that I don't just feel. Someone in chat this morning was like, Brooks is the clear number 2. I'd say I'm not as confident in that because what if the game does get wildly out of control and they go to Wilson like they did late in that game and they do it for more than just 1 drive? It could happen. So I'm not just writing either of them off, but I will say right now with the run, I was getting more Brooks than Wilson. But
Same.
look, neither of them are priorities. All I'm saying is if you're looking at a 14.5 point favorite, there's a reason that we should at least be talking about the backup running backs here. A lot of times we don't even have to talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only point I was trying to make is you have the blowout stuff, but out of any games, this would probably be the least surprising to see them involved earlier. Packers have a lot to play for yet this year. And this is a game where they can actually give their veterans a little bit of rest. Not like significant, but a snap here or there for Jacobs off the field wouldn't surprise me.
I said the exact same thing this morning. This team has Minnesota in Minnesota next week. I don't want to say they're already in look ahead mode, but that's a huge game.
Yes. Probably the biggest game left in the NFC.
Big time. And you know why it's such a big game? Because guess who the Vikings have to close out the year? The Detroit Lions. Yep. So there's implications here for sure. Wouldn't shock me. Also, wouldn't shock me if Jacobs just got like a boatload of carries. But this is us also just projecting the game to be a blowout. And we can't really do much else. But that's kind of the way it is right now.
One other thing on that specifically, when we do see teams with these outlier games, let's say a team has 40 carries, 45 carries. A running back that normally would have 90% of the carries just by default is not going to have that. We saw this with the Jets a couple times where Braylon Allen would have like 8 to 10 carries and Breece Hall would have 20. It's like, yeah, Breece Hall's not going to handle 36 carries on his own. So if the Packers reach one of those tail outcomes, you almost have to bring a backup running back with. And it's not even that crazy because the Packers have had some of these outlier outcomes. They have one of the heaviest run rates in the NFL. That should be their game plan coming into today.
It 100% should. Slim Lancaster asked, who is the deep ball threat for the Saints now that MVS is out? I mean,
probably Pettis.
Probably, but yeah, I guess.
The only one I think I'm almost certain isn't is Tipton. But like Kevin Austin was a deep ball guy at Notre Dame.
Shit, Derek Carr was airing him out to Tipton against the Chiefs earlier this year.
He just doesn't have that profile. But I don't.
For sure.
Nor does Shaheed, really. Shaheed's not built like a deep threat. He's just super fast.
I mean, really, it's Pettis.
I think it's Pettis, but man, Pettis is really old.
It's going to end up being like Foster Moreau.
I love Foster Moreau, man.
I always thought Juwan Johnson could be better than he's been, but he hasn't had a ton of help.
He's been like that ever since he was in college. So, yeah, I mean.
You're not shocked.
No. I can't believe he's on a team, honestly.
I'll tell
Not
you what,
that,
though. I think they try and utilize him tonight. I don't really see the alternatives.
yeah, he's their best pass catcher, which is really bad because this guy was horrendous in college. I can't believe he's stuck around this long.
Who do you like more, Foster Moreau or Juwan Johnson?
I think Johnson, because he's just a receiver that plays tight end. He doesn't do any of the like gritty stuff that Foster Moreau does. For DFS purposes, I think it has to be Juwan. Like, I don't even think him lining up out wider in the slot is that crazy today, given how weak they are. I guess one thing we should maybe touch on is that chance. Like, do they use more just Foster Moreau in line and then use Juwan as a big slot because every one of their receivers is so bad? I don't think it's that crazy. I honestly think it would be better than having guys like Pettis on the field. Whether they do that or not, I'm not sure, but it's at least worth considering because that MVS is a dusty receiver, but man, he's better than everyone that's going to be playing tonight.
MVS might not be good, but it is amazing that he was by far the standout guy. Like, I'm serious too. He was the alpha in this offense over the past few weeks, and that's an
Dude,
amazing thing to say.
this has to be the worst receiving core I've ever seen. Can you think of a worse one?
No, I mean, coming into the year, it was the Patriots, right? There were a couple really bad ones, but this has far surpassed that level of bad.
I can't even believe it, man.
I'm not kidding when I say that none of their starters tonight would be starters in New England.
Oh, 100. I don't even know if some of the guys would be on the roster.
In New England.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I mean, a lot of these guys weren't on a roster till like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, for sure. MVS wasn't. Wait, where was MVS?
He was originally on Buffalo to start the year, and then they cut him, and I'm not sure if he ever got picked up by anyone else.
Was he playing in Buffalo?
No, he was like on their preseason squad. He might have got cut on.
No, he was.
Cuts.
He was. He averaged
He
like
did play.
40% of snaps through the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, he was originally there, and I don't think he went anywhere else before the Saints.
Unreal. He was also their like number 6.
And they got Amari.
And they got
The,
Amari.
the
Yeah.
12 personnel thing is somewhat interesting to me. Last week, 40 snaps for Juwan, 35 for Moreau out of 55 total. And then they did some weird stuff with Prentice, 10 snaps as a fullback. Holker had 3 snaps. They ran a fair amount of 12. You might see this increase just naturally. And it's not that crazy, too, because Juwan is basically a wide. He's got like the Isaiah Likely build, like the Dulcich build, like the receiver playing tight end build. Jasicki, he looks more like that than he does, I don't know, Darnell Washington.
I think Jennings and Pettis, because Pettis is so cheap. Are you prioritizing anybody though? That's the real call here. Like that's what the people are here to know. Because when I look at all of these guys and I see, if you're just looking at it by price, however you want to do it, right? Pettis is 1K. It's amazing. There's just nobody there. Austin is 48, or that's at the captain spot. Austin's 32. Moreau is 3,000. Yeah, Juwan Johnson is 4,400. Tipton is 1,800. We assume that he's going to get on the field a little bit now that MVS is out because Tipton had been inactive, basically coincided with MVS starting to get worked into the offense. That's pretty much it. Is St. Brown on the roster?
He's not on the active roster.
Okay.
He should be, man. I love that guy at Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, it hasn't really panned out for him.
No, it hasn't. He's been terrible.
Yeah, he's had chances too. He was in Chicago when they had nobody.
He was a starter there.
That's what I mean. They didn't have DJ Moore. They didn't have Keenan Allen. Who did they have? Dante Pettis?
Yeah, they stunk. Team was
They-
Alshon Jeffrey.
Really? No, not then.
I don't know. They did have Alshon Jeffrey, though.
Dude, you're going back way far.
Really?
Yeah,
Perhaps
for
I am.
sure. Alshon Jeffrey was on the Eagles in 2018 when they won the Super Bowl after he was on the Bears.
All right, I'm gonna figure this out.
Alshon Jeffrey's last season with the Bears was 8 years ago.
Okay, well, it turns out Equinemius St. Brown's first stop with the Bears was in 2022. So you might be onto something.
Yeah, I think you're a little more than a half a decade off. But yeah, it was Darnell Mooney. That's right. Darnell Mooney, Dante Pettis, Byron Pringle, and Chase Claypool, who the Bears inexplicably traded a second for after he busted out in Pittsburgh when they drafted him in the second. This guy had every opportunity to produce and stunk. Anyway, can you prioritize the Saints receivers? Is it possible beyond, like for me, I would put Juwan Johnson first and a Pettis second because Pettis allows me to just get more Packers.
I agree with that. And I would say if it's even close to being a tie, just save yourself the money and go all the way down to Pettis. There's really no reason not to. He's going to save you so much. And I'm not sure the opportunity is that much different. It's really hard to project these guys too, because like every single week, someone's in, someone's out. So it's constantly changing. And when you have 3 practice squad starting receivers, I mean, like, how are you really supposed to project a targets per route distribution for this team? So yeah, just give me the $1,000 receiver, jam the studs, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I'm with you. Someone and Josh in chat said maybe it was Brandon Marshall.
He was so sick there.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
He was so sick there.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, great question, Goody. That's worth talking about. I have a personal answer to that. Goody with the super chat. Guys, I know the Saints hate Williams, but he has to be in play, right? Man, it's so difficult because Kendra, so the way I see it is he's going to get some opportunities, like as far as snaps go. However, the Saints, I don't see why they wouldn't want to see what they have in Kendre Miller, who they actually spent decent draft capital on. I mean, you want to talk about dust. Jamal Williams is true dust. And the last time Jamal Williams was good was, remember, he had the 58 touchdown season with the Lions, but everything was, you remember that? Everything was inside the 5. He wasn't actually good that year. He was just plowing his way behind a great offensive line and scored a lot of touchdowns. Last week against Washington, Alvin Kamara went down less than halfway through the game, and Jamal Williams played 6 snaps, did not see a single carry.
I think Jamal Williams should be right in that conversation with the other backs we talked about.
Sure.
But the only
Just
thing
less
is
touchdown equity.
And he's more expensive. So if you're breaking a tie, like just give me Emmanuel Wilson, give me Chris Brooks, for sure give me a Saints receiver. He's a large field tournament play on the basis that we don't fully know how to project the Saints running back room. But everything you said, I fully agree with. They're going to give Kendre a pretty long look. They invested capital in him and will have to make a decision on him pretty soon, actually, because he spent most of his career on injured reserve. So it's kind of like the time is now, otherwise you'll never know. Maybe it's like he gets on the goal line and slams one in, but you just mentioned it. What are the chances they're scoring a lot of touchdowns? I think he's thin, but if you're playing 150, you could probably do worse.
Let's see what the touchdown props are on Brooks, Wilson, and Williams. How much is Williams? What's his price?
36.
It's not cheap, though.
No, exactly.
And Brooks is
2K. Emmanuel Wilson's 2.4.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super far off, and you're going to have some wiggle room here. But all right, here you go. Jamal Williams, Pinnacle, plus 455 to score. Brooks is... Oh, wow. Are there no touchdown props for him? Emmanuel Wilson's plus 650 on FanDuel. No books have anything for Brooks, Matt. That's odd that they'd have Wilson and Williams, but not Brooks.
That is weird. I can't say I really understand why.
Me neither. But yeah, plus 480, shorter odds than I thought. Talk a little bit about the Packers here. Obviously, Josh Jacobs. Ben said it today. Ben's like, you might have a ton of Josh Jacobs, but if you have Josh Jacobs in the flex, it might not, like, you might not matter. You just might be hoping that Josh Jacobs starts doing poorly, meaning that like you might just flat out need him at captain everywhere. I have a ton of him. I have a lot of him at captain. I have a lot. Last sim I ran and it was just updated, so I'm gonna run these lineups again. But my guess, Matt, is that I have a boatload of him. I know I will. The one guy I like at captain, however, that I think is not going to get a ton. We had him at 8% ownership in the captain, is Christian Watson, because he could either just flat out goose egg and give me nothing, or I could get a big game from Christian Watson. And the thing I like, he leads the team in deep targets by a mile. They don't really have another legitimate deep target. That's why he could go for 0. Or against the Saints team that has allowed the most 40-plus yard receptions of any team, 5th most explosive plays on the season, and has really struggled with explosive plays. Christian Watson might just finally find his way into the end zone on one of those deep shots. Those type of boomer bust players are always interesting to me. He's super easy to get to at captain, and he's not all that popular.
I love Christian Watson too. For all the reasons you mentioned, I actually don't really have anything to add. I think it's kind of just parsing the Packers receivers and picking the ones you like the most. And I think Reed is probably going to come in with the most ownership just because why would you not spend up in like low risk contests, or if you have the extra $1,000? Like it's very easy to play Jacobs, Jordan Love, and an expensive Packers receiver. So with that being the case, I just imagine a lot of people will go all the way up to play Reed. But the target shares for these players are pretty similar. I think Reed is interesting because he gets some like gadgety stuff, and I do think he's explosive, especially after the catch. So while he doesn't create explosive plays in the same way Watson does, I think he still has it in his bag. But Watson being a little bit cheaper and less owned is where the difference is for me and why I agree with you. I will put Reed second. Dobbs is more of your possession receiver, but I mean, we're talking razor thin margins for all these targets here. I would rank Dobbs third slightly with Dontavian Wicks 4. He's pretty distant 4th at this point right now. But yeah, for captain, I think any of the Packers receivers could provide leverage. You're basically just banking that Jacobs doesn't run them in. It's like the Lamar game 2 weeks ago against, who was that? Who did they play 2 weeks ago that they were projected to win by like 14 points?
Hmm.
Was that Carolina?
No.
Do you remember the game I'm talking about?
Yeah, because
Everyone was smashing Derrick Henry.
they were coming off a loss to the Eagles, and then they had a bye, and then they came out with a really easy spot. It
The
was
Giants. The Giants.
Oh, and they did smoke them.
Yeah, but all the touchdowns went to Lamar, but
I
everyone was
know.
playing Derrick Henry.
Yeah, Lamar threw 5 touchdowns, right?
Yeah, if you're not playing Jacobs captain, you're hoping it's something like that, maybe 4-1 Love, 3-2 Love. Even that might not be enough.
Or it's like the Packers have multiple defensive touchdowns.
Oh, those are the most tilting games.
Yep. And even if they do have multiple defensive touchdowns, then they might just run it even, the Packers might just run it even more.
They might, yeah. I mean, those are disaster outcomes. But I don't think captaining the Packers defense is crazy. It's just like if you do that, you might be leaving 5K salary on the table or something.
I'm looking at exposures now. We just had a run come in at 742. So this will be the last adjustment I make. Yeah, I have 60% Jacobs at captain. Man, I don't know. Do I drop that? It's so much.
I think at 60, my answer is yes.
So do I. I mean, that's a monstrous number.
It's crazy. But what do you think the ceiling is? Like,
45,
where would you want to cap
50,
that?
45, 50.
I think so too.
61. I mean, look, you could just, for all the marbles, right, Matt? You could go with that approach. And I don't mind doing that a lot of times, but that's just a ton.
That gets into like the risk tolerance thing too.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I really want anyone ever in showdown to 60% of my lineups at captain.
Right. I might just cap it.
I'm getting through my run right now. I'm very curious to see where this ends up, but I imagine it won't be drastically different than you.
Is it, I think I'm just, look, there's spots where I know I'm not overthinking and people tell me I'm overthinking and I end up being right. I think I am overthinking this one. In that and then I'm going like, oh, there's a lot of different ways this game could play out. I mean, sure, there are, but there's a lot less ways than usual.
I think you're just hoping Love throws him. Like that is, I think, very clearly the way Jacobs doesn't get there in captain.
Yeah.
Like Lamar, that's the blueprint. It's unlikely because they're not throwing the ball a lot. But I mean, even if you have 45% of your lineups captaining Josh Jacobs, that's a ton.
I got him to 50.
50, I think, is reasonable.
And then I have like 10% Love, 15% Watson, 10% Juwan Johnson, some Jaden Reed. The Juwan Johnson's a little bit unnerving.
It is because what do you? That's a good one to take a look at. What are you spending that extra money on?
Great question. Let's see. Juwan, it's leaving 1,600, which actually isn't that much. Juwan Johnson, Brandon McManus, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Spencer Rattler, Tucker Kraft. Here's another one with Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Packers D, Spencer Rattler, Tucker Kraft.
I don't hate it. I don't like it, but I don't hate it.
That's how I feel too. Yeah, don't love it.
The reason I would rather, I think, just dedicate that to Packers, and you're playing 150, you probably end up with some Johnson, but it's just like you have a ceiling with Reed and Watson that I don't think you access with him.
You don't. Or with Rattler, really. What I mean is that it's unlikely Rattler is going to get him there. Certainly seems unlikely.
Rattler's projected for 12.5 points.
Which is just wild.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
You know what might be the play here is okay. So obviously I like Christian Watson there, but I might just if I'm capping Josh Jacobs, might just play it how you're saying and just hit Jordan Love with a somewhat healthy boost, ROI boost in the Sims at captain.
I think that's fair. Like who could outscore Jacobs? Love comes through the air. The receivers, it's a little harder to make that argument for because you need some consolidation and they just don't have that in not even their snaps, like snaps, routes, target distribution. It's all pretty even. And when you introduce 4 of them, that's where it gets very muddy.
Right.
And like Musgrave's back tonight. I don't know how much he plays, but last year when all 6 of the Packers pass catchers were back, it was a nightmare. You couldn't even use one of the tight ends. Now it's his first game back. Who knows how many snaps he gets, but he's a receiving specialist at tight end.
I know.
It's actually
what about go ahead.
As far as this slate goes, for as bad of a game as it is, it's actually a pretty intriguing puzzle to solve.
I love these games. I love them. We haven't even talked about I think the Packers are just way easier to talk about than the Saints. You have Josh Jacobs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, pick your poison there. Love doesn't throw a lot, but it's also possible that Jordan Love could throw 26 times and have 4 passing touchdowns. Like that's in play here. We've seen it. What about Kendre Miller?
I have a hard time with him. Not that I dislike him, but his projection is extremely volatile. And there's a couple points where I think you could talk about the volatility. First is just what's the straight up workload? Because the guy's barely played. Second, scoring expectation. They're not expected to score a lot of points. And third, what's his pass catching role? Because I think if you told me he was going to go into like the Alvin Kamara, even Alvin Kamara light role, then maybe I'd have some interest in him. But I'm just not sure he's a significant receiving threat out of the backfield. He only caught 16 passes his final year in college. I mean, I have a hard time seeing it. But
so if that's the case, then they're basically just rarely using a running back out of the back because it's not going to be Jamal Williams.
They might just have him pass block. Like
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's what I think. Kendry did have a target in each of the last 2 games. Kamara getting hurt in the last one, which I don't think that's positive. Like, he only had 1 target and Kamara didn't even play half the game.
And he only ran 2 fewer routes than Kamara, and they both played half of the game.
There's a chance that they ask him to do it. Maybe it's just like, we don't want to change our offense that much. We're going to lose this game anyway. Like, just do what you can. But yeah, man, I'm not optimistic, but it's at least a question. And when it's a question and there's unknown, there's potential, but it's hard to see. There's not very much you can really hang your hat on with him potentially having this role even. He projects for like 12.5 points for us. It's also atrocious.
It's not good. Would you prefer him or Rattler? Just agnostic to build, to the type
Probably
of build.
Rattler, but I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, I think I
Rattler's
would.
going to be they also need to evaluate Rattler.
Rattler is another guy too that he actually can run, even though he's not great. He can. You look at a couple of his starts, I think he had like 30 and 40 rushing yards.
He's Baker, dude. He's the quarterback that thinks he's more athletic than he is.
That's okay with me.
Same. He's going to try.
Yeah, right. That's all we can ask for. He's going to give it a go. So I don't know. I mean, I would say that when I look at all of my lineups, I have all different types of builds. Obviously, one of the common ones would be 5-1 Green Bay, a popular build. I have a lot of 3-3s, 4-2s. Ben and I amazingly build out a 40% ROI 5-1 Saints lineup no, you know what he wanted to try? It was 40%. It was Josh Jacobs captain, Green Bay defense, and then 4 Saints.
I just got to admit that the projection was good enough and it had such low ownership. Like, your chance of cashing is maybe low, but your chance of winning when it hits, like in that funky game environment, you're the only one with it.
Right. It's like Green Bay's D goes off, they run it, Josh Jacobs has a game, and then the Saints are in come from behind mode the entirety of the game.
It's not that crazy. We've seen a lot of games like that.
I know. It's nuts. It's possible. What do you think of the Saints at that price, or the Packers at that price point?
I think they're playable.
Me too.
As crazy as it is.
So do I.
Okay,
I don't know how much I love him at captain, because I still think that implied total is very high for the Packers. Also, another thing, Matt, I don't necessarily know I need the savings today there, and they're not that cheap. So it's a weird spot for me to be captaining the Packers.
I agree. I don't think it's necessary. Do you prefer the Packers to McManus?
Not really, no.
I think I kind of like McManus more.
I like him a little bit more. One of the reasons being that even though this team could score a ton of touchdowns today, you could still result in like 3 McManus field goals and 4 extra points, and that still ends up being a pretty nice game. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not suggesting they're going to score 50 tonight, but you get the point. Like, it's anything in a game like this is possible. So yeah. Where else do you want to go? We got a good around 20 minutes before we kick off here, and I'm finalizing some of these lineups.
There's still a couple guys I wanted to get your take on. One of the big ones is Kraft. Sort of like Kraft versus Wicks now that we have this Luke Musgrave situation on our hands. I think Musgrave's going to play a decent amount. Maybe like even a quarter of the snaps.
He might. But Kraft is already a guy that you're really hoping for 3 receptions, like, and a touchdown.
At his
I
price,
have Tucker Kraft today at his price. He's targeted in the reds. I have Tucker Kraft. Don't get me wrong. I have a decent amount. I'm not convinced Musgrave is going to play that much, though. He hasn't played in a long time. I know that he's been working his way back. He's been practicing. He hasn't played since week 4. So what, early October? And he was already playing, somewhat limited snaps with Tucker Kraft kind of beginning to take over. What's a realistic projection for snaps on Musgrave today? A third of them?
Yeah, I was going to say 25% towards the ceiling. But they do use a lot of 12 personnel. Not a lot, a fair amount. Like Ben Sims had 16 snaps in their last game. Fitzpatrick had 9. I guess really the only thing to say about that is those guys are generally used for blocking. And that's not Musgrave's game, which is why I kind of think it might be closer, honestly, to like the 15-20%. But they do use
Especially in his
12.
first game back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a decent amount of Tucker Kraft, though. This is just kind of a process of we don't know who's going to get the ball for Green Bay. Outside of
Kraft is
Josh
awesome.
Jacobs.
Yeah,
What?
Kraft is awesome.
Yeah, but he still needs to get targeted.
That's the thing with the Packers. They've got like 6 guys I think are awesome, but you run out of plays to get all those guys theirs.
I'll answer that question in a second, Chris. By the way, a couple other things to get to, but only a couple days left on the exclusive package, the deal that we've got going on right now. We have football tonight. We have football Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's 6 of the next 8 days. No, wait, was that 6 of the next? Yeah, 8 days. And then you've got a huge week 18 slate. You've got the wild card, which has Saturday, Sunday, Monday, divisional round, Saturday, Sunday, championship, then Super Bowl. Normally for 2 months, the max NFL max would be $400. It's $179. You get it throughout the entire Super Bowl. You do it now with the promo code CELEBRATE with the link in the description at checkout. You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the year. You're simply locked in. And if you wanted to upgrade, I think we could make that work out for you as well. So there it is, 179 Sims Max, sim up to 10,000 lineups. Get that, get the single lineup. Well, get every single tool that we have for NFL, every single one to the highest degree. You're just going to make better lineups. It's that simple. And if you wanted to do it another way, you could just sign up through any of our sportsbook partners. Yeah, you guys probably know about this by now, but if you don't, legitimately no better way to take advantage of it. If you look down there, join any sportsbook, gets the Stokastic Sims free. Click that link and click claim offer on any sportsbook or any pick'em site. If you are in a non-legal state, pick'em sites are there. If you're in a legal state, get all of those bonus bets at Bet365, FanDuel, wherever it may be that you're not on yet. BetMGM. Sign up. You got to click claim offer or we can't track you. Deposit. Usually minimum deposit's like $5 or $10. Do it now. Place your first bet during this game because the moment that bet settles, just send us a screenshot of your welcome email at support@stokastic.com and your first settled bet. 2 simple screenshots. Let us know what sports you want, and you have a free month of core. $99 value for NFL. Sims included, sim up to 1,000 lineups, single lineup sim, post-contest sim, late swap, all of that. You get all of it for doing essentially nothing but getting yourself bonus bets and adding to your bankroll. And then you just get free subs on the other side with Stokastic. And if you wanted to sign up on 4 books, that's 4 months. 2 books, 2 months. 3 pick'em sites is 3. Do as many as you want. There is no limit. As long as it's on that list and you go through the claim offer, you got it. Anyway, links to all that in the description. Merry Christmas. All right, Matt. I want to dive a little bit deeper into Jordan Love here because his passing attempts prop is 29.5, juice to the under. But when it's such a good matchup, it still kind of doesn't matter to me in the sense that exactly what you said about Lamar Jackson. They were 15.5-point road favorites. Everybody, would have loved Derrick Henry in that spot. He had a rushing prop north of 100 yards, and it didn't matter because Rashad Bateman went wild and Lamar was passing to everybody in that game. Do you think this could be a spot we lean into with Jordan Love tonight? And if that's the case, would you be willing to fade Josh Jacobs entirely in some of those lineups or just simply play him with Jordan Love?
I'm definitely interested in Jordan Love. The approach you kind of took live on the stream is what I'm doing. Just bringing Jacobs down a little bit to bring Love up because when you go through it, who are the players that can really outscore Jacobs and captain? I think by far the most likely is Love because of the receiver rotation. As far as playing him with Jacobs, I don't think I'm going to come out of this with Jacobs. He's going to be in every lineup. I guess I'll put it that way. 100% Jacobs is just going to be a matter of flex versus the captain spot.
I'm with you. Waylon Jennings, he's going to get hurt in like the first quarter. Waylon Jennings asks, how do you guys get different on FanDuel Love and Jacobs are dominating captain. For me, Matt, it would be simple. It would just be like a Christian Watson or a Jordan or a Jalen Reed play if I wanted to get different because they do at least have a ceiling.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this on FanDuel. If you play Pettis, you can play anyone you want. FanDuel, everything we've been talking about with DraftKings, you can play whoever you want, is worse on FanDuel. You got to actively go out of your way and play guys that are just straight up projected. And in some cases, significantly worse to get different. I don't love playing large field on FanDuel tonight because I was building over there and literally you can do Jacobs captain, Love flex. And the second you plug in Pettis at flex, you can play the next two highest guys. Like salary is not a thing on FanDuel today. That's actually pretty annoying.
It is pretty annoying. Yeah, just essentially do what you want.
Yeah, dude, because then it's like it becomes entirely an ownership game because you can literally play the optimal. And if you removed salary and you just played the four highest projected guys and Pettis, like you can do that on FanDuel.
Yeah.
FanDuel is bad today.
Another question we can dig into here is, what about groupie? What about the Saints kicker? What about the Saints defense?
I don't love it. Just off the top of my biased head, this is where I'm letting I'm letting Sims take the wheel because I know that there are outcomes where both of these are optimal, especially at price. Do I like it? Absolutely not. I think the Saints are going to get absolutely steamrolled. I don't know if Groupie's going to have a lot of attempts in this game, but there are outcomes where those things do hit. So I'm letting the Sims do the work for those. And right now it looks like it's not going to be a significant portion of lineups. It's about 15% Saints, 9% Groupie. If you can find the salary to play the Packers counterparts, I prefer that. But I realize there are outcomes where they could be optimal.
I'm seeing a few lineups here that I have like some of these 4-2 Packers lineups are interesting where it'd be like Watson, Pettis, Love, Jacobs, Packers, Rattler, where I don't hate that. You have Packers in there, Jacobs, Love, Watson. It's not to say you can do whatever you want on DraftKings, but I haven't hand built. I was using the single lineup Sims earlier today, seeing what looked good and what worked. I didn't make a lineup that I didn't like. And there's a lot of showdown slates where you and I will make lineups that we simply don't like.
It is a cursing and a bless. I think it's better on DraftKings because you have more options. So you're not just running into like on FanDuel, there's going to be some huge train lineups. Huge.
Yeah. DraftKings, maybe not as much. I ran some with a 10,000 field when I did the contest generator and simmed them, and there weren't as many dupes on DraftKings as I thought there would be.
That's what I'm noticing too. But FanDuel, that is not the case.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And it's crazy too, because you can run like Green Bay's 5-1s, 4-2s that aren't that duped.
Let's do our favorite captains that aren't Josh Jacobs.
Okay, we should probably include Jordan Love. Would you agree? Josh Jacobs far and away a tier of his own. Jordan Love far and away the second tier, then everyone else.
Yep. Then it's Christian Watson for me, just due to that deep threat.
I agree with you.
And then probably Reed.
I think it's Reed too.
Then you get down to Dobbs, Kraft.
I would go Dobbs, Kraft, Wicks.
Would you go all of them ahead of anyone for the Saints? Like ahead of Rattler?
Maybe Rattler ahead of like Wicks and Kraft. It's a discussion too, man. Like, I don't think it's clear.
I want to say that Rattler's got to be ahead of,
Yeah, he touches the ball every play. Like,
yeah, I'd probably put him below Reed. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
So fifth.
Yeah, fifth or sixth. Maybe below Dobbs. I don't know.
What's that?
Maybe below Dobbs.
Maybe. I could see that. You get your lineups in?
Yeah, I'm good.
Me too. I got one more here for the spy.
We got Jordan. Did you see the super chat asking about the sim? Okay, cool.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jordan. You've been on top of this. I'm deciding, Matt. Here you go. 1,000-man field. 1,000-person field, the spy. So $100 entry, 20K up top. Do we go Jacobs captain, Watson captain, or Love?
You're only playing one single entry spy.
It's a single entry, yeah.
Maybe Love.
That's what I have right now. Yep, that's what I have right now. And I don't hate it.
I like it.
I was thinking Watson, but then I'm like, do I need to do that in the spy?
Probably not.
You definitely could,
You
but that's
could.
just a massive risk play there.
Yes.
I mean, big time. All right, let's do it. Here we go.
Don't dupe him.
No, I didn't say what the lineup was. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
still had to figure out what the rest of the lineup is. You wouldn't want to dupe me these last few weeks anyway, I'll tell you that much.
It's a showdown, man. It's not a two gamer. You're okay.
I know, right?
We'll leave that for Christmas.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I was like, thank God Saturday's 3 games. But don't fare much better on that. They're tough, man, because you can't get anything wrong. And what I mean by anything wrong is like you could have not had, say, Jonathan Taylor and still had a profitable day. You're not winning anything in the main slate, right? But you could have still had a profitable day. If you don't have a good, like, and I'd be playing a bunch of lineups, but if you're under the field, Matt, on a guy who on a 2-game slate is the highest score, it's just over.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially a slate like this.
Mm-hmm.
That'll
Yeah,
be
this
Christmas for me though. So we'll address that in a couple days.
Christmas one's going to be fun. Ravens, Texans. They added Deontay Johnson too. There's no way he plays, right? After being signed tonight.
Probably not. Mechie's gonna play, he said, so I think they probably
With
roll with their depth.
he had the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had him, Tank Dell, dislocated knee, ACL tear, brutal. And then,
Yeah, really sad.
yeah, it's terrible. And then you got Steelers Chiefs. I love that game.
Yeah, and Pickens might play.
I think he's going to. Full practice participant today.
Oh, baby, we're gonna see the air guns.
He's the man. He's the man. He also actually, I think, we talk about wide receivers. I think Pickens affects that offense more than almost any skill player affects an offense in the league. They are putrid without him.
Yeah, if you actually did like if most valuable player meant what those words mean, you could argue it's Pickens.
With how bad they are when he's off the field.
Correct. Like
Yeah.
he's really valuable to that offense, which I'm still not sure why the word valuable is in that award.
Right? Yeah. Seriously. I mean, Joe Burrow.
Oh, if this was I was talking to some of my friends about this. If it was actually the most valuable player, like
Joe
Burrow would at
Burrow.
least be in the conversation. He's not even in the conversation.
He's at least top 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a dumb award.
Well, what I mean is without Joe Burrow, that team might not have won a single game.
Yeah, without a doubt. Their defense is horrendous.
Terrible. They were scoring 35 points a week and still losing all of them. It's insane. Paul said this slate seems easy. It does, which means we have a problem.
Kiss of death.
Jordan, Reed and Johnson or Rattler and Groupie? Reed and Juwan Johnson for me. Although that's very close.
Agreed.
We have any other questions before we go? Del Toro, you guys are awesome. Thanks for the insight, fellas. For sure. Thanks, man. Merry Christmas. Assuming you celebrate.
Reed Johnson or Rattler Groupie. Reed side for me.
That's the one I took too.
Oh, you already answered that one.
Yeah, it's cool. Romeo Dobbs or Kendre Miller. I mean, if you can fit Miller, I still like Miller better.
Yes.
Single entry love captain. Yeah, we just said it. Yeah.
Yeah,
We just
absolutely.
we just talked about it. Shamar, Reed, Dobbs, or Watson?
Watson.
Uh, what's that?
Watson.
I like Watson too. But you have to be okay with the fact that he's just boomer bust. But really, so is Reed. Ben was saying today that he has a built-in floor, and he's not fully wrong. But Reed's built-in floor is like 6 points.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting 6 targets a game, you're going to be volatile, and that's every Packers pass catcher.
Especially when a lot of those targets are like 1 yard past the line of scrimmage.
I wish they would do more with him, man. He's good.
He's good, but he's playing 50% of the snaps each week.
Yeah, I know it's sad, but they're crushing teams.
Yeah, it
Who am
doesn't
I to
matter.
talk?
They're killing teams. Hey, guys, go follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. Check out all of his college football work, his college football sims. Listen, you sign up with any other sports book, grab college football. How much of bowl weeks do we have left? Like, how many weeks of that left?
We have a month.
Oh, so if you did it today, you're getting, yeah, we also have that going too. 59. We got so many using code playoff. We got so many good promos right now, but you get in a million different ways. So we got a month of that. We got a month and a half of football, all that. So go check out all Matt's work over on OddShopper on YouTube for betting. I got my picks for Christmas coming out tonight after this game is over. Check them out. Say hi in the comments. Have a great rest of the night, guys. Hit us up on the Twitter, and we'll see you back here for the next one. Peace. Merry Christmas.